So, according to reports, Nigerians are expressing outrage over the sacking of a police female corporal because she got pregnant out of wedlock. They slammed the Nigerian police force over what they described as discriminatory and called on a civil rights group to fight for this woman. Now, let me give you the section of the Police Act that this was done. The chief financial officer in Ekiti, it happened in Ekiti State, was asked to relay the information to this female corporal. And they were relying on Section 127 of the Police Act and regulation against women police getting pregnant before marriage. So Corporal Olajide Omolola was passed out of police training back in 24/4/2020, and then she was asked to leave. Says she stands dismissed from the force. It says debit her, retrieve police documents in her possession, and with immediate effect. That's on the CFO Ekiti State. Now, so what is legal is different from what is morally upright or right. And that's our conversation today. Yes, we know based on their law, she was rightfully dismissed. But the question, therefore, is that is this law discriminatory? And if it is, why does this kind of law exist? Or is it the right thing to do for a police? Is getting pregnant against the kind of work a policeman does? So can that affect the nature of their? Can it affect the nature of their work? Yes.
Okay. May I quickly say that the law itself, it's an outdated law. It's been repealed and amended already.
Yes. That's September 2020.
Yes, 2020. So according to the new law, she has not committed any crime. So I think the police should go back to the law that is what they are using currently and not judge her case based on the law that has been amended already. Now, if you follow the new law, she has not committed any crime, and I do not see why she should be dismissed and her salary stopped, except there are other things we do not know that has transpired.
So you're saying that the CFO is depending on an outdated law. But according to what
according to the new law, you still require permission from your superiors to get married.
That's the old law.
No, that's the new law.
No, that's the
new law.
Let me get it for you.
You now require permission from your superiors to get married. So the old law was that within a certain period of time, because that I'm aware of even with the NDLEA, is that 3 years you should not get married or get pregnant. And you require the permission of your superior to proceed to get married. But I don't know whether it still covers not getting pregnant.
So this was a Punch's report, and he said part of the old law, which has been repealed, also made it compulsory for police women to seek the permission of their superiors before getting married. All this is outdated as we speak. So based on the new law, what the position the police has taken is quite discriminatory, if you ask me, and they should, give us more reasons, if anything, if they are going to follow up on dismissing her, it's not about, it shouldn't be tied to the fact that she got pregnant out of wedlock.
Let me hear your thoughts, because I'd like at some point to pack it and then talk about should women be discriminated against based on their pregnancy status or not. That's a different conversation, but let me hear your thoughts on this issue.
So for me, first of all, because I also, after reading the story, I also read the part where it says the law had been repealed as recently as September 2020, and that the police force was not aware, the police command in charge was not aware, of course, rang a bell concerning many other things that police officers seem to be doing despite the new laws. So we have people ask, when you find someone in an emergency situation, person shot, you're supposed to treat the person, but hospitals will say to you that the police officers do not care. If you go ahead to treat them, they will still be prosecuted for that. And so it seems that the police needs more education. They need to be aware of the laws. They need to be aware of the Constitution and follow it. So they need better training concerning that. Secondly, of course, it is discriminatory, and I'm sure that's why it's been repealed, because if you say for a woman not to be pregnant, for being pregnant out of wedlock, the man who impregnates her, if he's in the force, or a man who impregnates a woman and he's in the force, does he get the same sack as the woman? So I'm happy that when as a country, we have moved ahead. Do you understand? It would have been really sad that we're discussing this and saying, please change the law. But we have changed the law. We're asking that people understand it.
May I quote Sunday Abutu, who is the police public relations officer for Ekiti State? He said, it was the Police Act Section 124 that was repealed by the court and not Section 127. Okay. Section 127 still stands, and Section 124 talks about women police taking permission from the commissioner before getting married. What? It says, Section 127 says any police officer who is unmarried and eventually gets pregnant shall be disengaged from the force. It is in the Police Act and regulation. It is a regimented organization, and we have our rules and regulations which everyone must comply with. Sure. So even in the military, we are aware that, you know, these rules apply until you have certain, and some people have to flex contacts within any of these paramilitary or military force to vacate these laws from applying to them. We know that it
have looked at it,
but we know the nature of their work. Okay. And the truth is, for some people, for the kind of pregnancies that I have, imagine, I know this law is not discriminatory and
Are you joking?
Against me. The kind of pregnancies I have, I can't be pregnant and practice civil law. I remember. Mm-hmm. Do you understand? So for some women, pregnancies are tough. For some women, it's a piece of cake. But we cannot generalize this law and say that the law was made without consideration to everybody, because they know what they might have to deal with. We know in some simple businesses where women are pregnant and they constantly slip through work. Yeah. The nature of their work, there must be some kind of rationale for how they reached this decision. And we must not, you know, look at this. You just
shouldn't gloss over it.
We shouldn't just gloss over it because we think something.
But
she was a new recruit. She was still in the police college training at the time they found out she was pregnant. And you know, and she had contravened the law based on that ground. I think we must consider that along with the kind of work she's taking. But so if she were to fight her cause was, if there was no maybe she was already in the force and they could find a replacement for her while she goes back and finish with the duration, which is just 9 months, deliver the baby.
I'm a bit confused because for me, what I get is that she was sacked because she was pregnant out of wedlock, not because she was pregnant at all. So because if you're pregnant, pregnant and you're married, it's not a problem. If the question is you are pregnant in a short period, because we have had this conversation before where people would say, I do not employ women because, I mean, in a few months she'll be pregnant and I'll be stuck in my business. So we have that, and then they let you know beforehand. If you are willing to work here, you would be, the first few years, you promise not to be pregnant. If you are pregnant, we'll have to let you go. But this is out of wedlock. And I do not think, now morally, of course, nobody is here preaching having babies out of wedlock. But the thing is, should it be the place of your employer to determine how you father your child? Do you understand?
That's a fantastic question, Mary. Let me go on a quick break. When we come back, we'll discuss that. We'd like to take some tweets on it because that's exactly the question I want to discuss. Should your employer be the one to determine who fathers your child? Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. So, a really serious conversation we're trying to have here, especially the fact that a lot of women are being discriminated against because of their having children outside wedlock. Yes, societally, it's frowned upon. However, many women find themselves in that position not because they chose to, but circumstances of life happens. And the question, therefore, is, should they be discriminated against because of their status? So, for example, you're applying to work in a church as a receptionist, or maybe you even started working in the church already. And something happened, you got pregnant, and then you're fired. Not because you're a member of that church. You're just a receptionist. You probably go to a different church. So you got pregnant out of wedlock, and suddenly you're then sacked because they feel the image of the church will be affected because of your status as a pregnant woman out of wedlock. So the question, therefore, should this discrimination stand because of the kind of society we live in? Or should we still uphold the dignity of a woman regardless of what her circumstances
are? Do you want to talk about the conversation of how we've broken standards such that, you know, a lot of things now that we complain about, we accommodated them by, you know, breaking all the standards.
Like,
let me quickly take these tweets first. So this one is saying, Nima, pregnancy is not a lifelong condition, so why should anyone's employment be terminated for that? It is discriminatory to women, period. Just because men's transgressions are often not visible, and even when they are, this is just a patriarchal society. Biliki says, I don't know what laws or rules guide the police, so it's hard to say whether this is wrong. if they sign an undertaking to agree to their terms regarding being single and falling pregnant on duty, then it will be a different conversation entirely. Is it for lack of performance that, she's being sacked? Dolani Robert says, pregnancy is not a defense against breaking the law, nor is it a defense against stupidity, nor is it an illness, nor does she deserve to be sanctified. So she's saying it's not moral, but it's not so bad. Okay. So for me, let's leave the issue of the discrimination within the police force and what laws guides the police force. So when you're joining any establishment, I have a contract with TVC. So when I'm pregnant and I have to be on my 6 months bed rest, TVC is not losing resources. I would gladly go on my bed rest while the company runs its business. So if you're in a person's business and your pregnancy is my kind of pregnancy, you should be more understanding. You should be appreciative of your boss if the person is willing to find an assistant or a replacement, temporary replacement for you while you go. So that is good. Yeah. We know the laws and all of that. But let's talk about this moral standards dropping. So in those days, why it wasn't because of just shaming. It's because I believe the sanctity of family and marriages and homes, the issues that we deal with today were not so rampant those days because there were different methods of dealing with them. Having a child out of wedlock is a serious issue. Some people have children out of wedlock. They don't even know the families of the person they're dating and they got pregnant. You have the man running away. The woman dealing with all the issues. We have single mothers who today are, regretful of the kind of person they ended up having the child for without the child's fault. So, when you do your due diligence and the person comes and he meets your family, some things can be avoided. Some eventually happen. But, a lot of those issues might be avoided because your family meets the person's family. You know whether you are doing second or first or third. You know your position.
Because there are people who don't have children out of wedlock intentionally.
I think it's unfair for any employer to, relieve you of your duties, dismiss you of your duties because of how you chose to have your child. Now, if you get into the organization and you signed an agreement that I'm going to stay 2 years or 3 years before having a child, that's a different ball game altogether. If you had no agreement of such, it's not your employer's job to tell you the father must have put a ring on the finger. What if you did not want that marriage to continue? What if you were abused in that relationship and you said, well, I'm already pregnant, let me just take my baby.
Listen, what if your status affects the image of that employer?
No, what has no, I'm not talking about a religious setting. Let's take away the religious settings because, of course, they will not want to promote, people having children out of wedlock. But let's say an organization that probably sells something or, merchandise, into merchandise, they are selling, they are branding and all of that. What has your personal life got to do with your productivity on the job? What's the connection? Are people coming to buy your product and asking you how many people have children outside wedlock in your organization? That will determine if I will pay for that product or not. You need to understand your kind of business and take away personal life.
Let me stay on this for a second.
What if
you sell condoms and you are the number one spokesperson and your job is to show how effective your product is, and suddenly you got pregnant and you're not yet married. For the company, they're like, auntie, you cannot be our spokesperson anymore because you're not yet married.
That's not even my argument.
No, that even is connected to the job.
Yes,
okay, so you're doing a job that you need to maintain.
Let's assume the job sells shoes, but your major client has such religious bias that he doesn't want to cite an unmarried woman with pregnancy in your establishment and is willing to pull out his finances from your business. Your patronage from your business because of that.
How will you know that's my client?
Maybe she's the one in charge of his account.
The point is that, guys, I want to take this conversation to let us be very careful.
No, because when she said, she made it about choice. And if it's about choice, it can be the employer's choice.
Right.
The power to hire and fire is still that of the employers. So when we discuss these issues, we must not isolate them.
Okay, let's talk.
So you must understand the situation where you find yourself and how you're going to work there.
Okay.
See, these examples that we're giving, they're just, if your job has to do with you, man, if you're a model and you're supposed to be modeling clothes and you turn up pregnant, they will let you go because they're not looking for a pregnant model. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about you doing a regular, normal job. You're a regular normal person. You're in the civil service, for instance, and you turn up pregnant and no one knows the father. would that why would then the civil service say that you must leave your job because we do not know the father of your child? That's what we're talking about. It is discriminatory. It is wrong. It does not affect the production, your productivity. It does not affect the organization that you're working for. If you're the face of the church, of course, you would understand. In fact, if you're a pastor, for example, and that is where the discrimination comes from. If you're a pastor and people have evidence that you have been sleeping around with your congregation, with young girls, you have raped someone, it is for you to step away from. Yes, you have to step away from that position that you find yourself, because you are supposed to be showing to people that you are of a certain moral standard. But when people keep you on and blame the victim, do you understand? So when we talk about women and getting pregnant, this is what we're talking about, that for some reason, the burden of guilt, the burden of shame, the burden of responsibility falls on the person who has the physical embodiment of what has gone on.
Physical evidence.
Physical evidence.
May I just agree with you?
I want to agree with her.
Let me agree with you that it's not about when a person is pregnant, it shouldn't be that person alone who should carry it, but let's not make them victims. So let's assume that it's two mutual adults having a relationship and they get pregnant. If there are consequences, it should go both ways.
Yes. But what do we see?
But you see, even in the civil service, in some parastatals, you can't be married to a colleague. So if you find in your workplace, you fall in love with a colleague, it's a ground for such certain people to ask one person. The banks, they do it all the time.
Yes.
So there's an undertaking to that. So whatever you sign, when you are coming in,
I want to even say that, see, the thing that is paining me is that I'm just realizing that there are people that are more equal than others, just like Animal Farm. There are people who would have been in that position in the police, depending on their position, and they get pregnant out of wedlock and they will not be sacked.
Yes, I said it earlier.
The commissioner of police will remove his eye like he did not see anything because the person is high ranking, the person is in the society, has money. So the laws we just make are just, unfortunately, it's just for the
so I want us to go back to that question.
Who are defenseless.
We have to go back to that question because I want us to wrap up on this conversation.
No,
so you are the boss. You are the boss in a. You're one that you can let just say an allergy. No, you're not talking about. You're a boss in maybe a
you were the IG.
Hang in. Let me lay this the premise. You're a boss, right? You have a wife in the house. One of your secretaries, one of the people around, is sleeping with you, and she now got pregnant. You go sack everybody now is saying. So do you sack auntie?
You sack everybody.
You don't sack nobody in Nigeria.
Nobody will sack.
Forget the IG.
Sorry?
Who's secretary? He was in the papers. We had a former IG who was accused of, dating one of the secretaries in this country.
Okay.
And they kukuma wed. They were shouting. In this country, Google it. I wanted to give you the story. You didn't let me. An IG, a former IG, I think it was in Jonathan's time. From the Northern Extract.
Okay.
The one who had a learning defect that, was heading, I think IGS. He has to be an IG.
Okay.
But within his parastatal, there was a lady accused to be of the police. I'm sure Dolakwa dropped this thing, please. Who was supposed to be dating him. What we saw after we were shouting in the papers, they do wedding. Everybody shut up. Say, okay, so what?
So my question is, do we do a law to protect a woman who has gotten pregnant out of wedlock because life happened to her, not because she intentionally went out there? There has to be a law to protect that woman.
And that's what the
because
law
to every general rule.
So are we saying that that person that impregnated her must marry her?
No,
thank you.
So every general rule, there are exceptions. Let's do a law that such women are not discriminated against because of their pregnancy, except productivity
is affected.
At work is affected because you cannot use your condition to affect the business of another person. Even if you are going on a 9 months break, sign up, maybe no pay or pay or
and that is what we're saying should be the so you have even agreed then. That is what we're saying. The grounds to sack someone should be
immorality. Okay, let's get to it
from your lack of
productivity. We need to wrap up on this. Any tweets? Our phone lines are not working, but I'd like to wrap up so that
JB
we can
says we need to understand that the laws that guide civil service is different from force personnel. From the force. Personnel are expected to act with high moral standard, and there are some strict regulations to be followed. The law is the law. If you're uncomfortable with it, seek employment elsewhere.
Okweyemi Alade says, I beg you, What about the male police officers who does worse, like even going outside marriage to impregnate other women? Because this is even more. Why aren't they sacked? This is too sentimental.
Okay, we have to run off now. Any other tweets? Okay. Let's go on a break. When we come back, so generally we've agreed that these women should be protected, except in certain special cases where you gain employment in places where you can't get pregnant.
Sorry, I have to take this tweet, but some things are strange to us. So this one, Aramide says, there are ladies who are single till a certain age and they decide to go for IVF donor to at least have a child if husband is not coming.
What if that's what that auntie did? Some things
are strange.
You see, these laws must be updated
to allow donor.
I
read those things in
consider the modern times.
Exactly.
We have to run, unfortunately. We have another interesting topic because this topic, BC did not want us to take it. He said this topic is not her own. She doesn't want to be part of this conversation. We will force her to be part of this conversation. Stay with us.
Even Nima says she doesn't want to be part of it.
Oh, Nima to do
I didn't say that.
Even Nima says she doesn't want to be part of it.